Brunch culture.
We want to talk about faith. We want to talk about politics. We want to talk about race. We want to talk about pop culture. Literally, everything is up for discussion, and that's what brunch culture is about. It's about a thing. Feel real good with your hands in the air and lick 2 shots in the air.
Brunch culture. Brunch culture. Brunch culture. Brunch culture.
She's Lisa V.
And he's Randall Keith.
And this is Brunch Culture, your favorite show where everything is up for discussion.
Yes. 2017.
2017 is
definitely up for discussion.
like over, right? It's like it's up for discussion because it's like over. Like we got what? All of 3 days, 4 days?
It's so crazy. It's almost Friday. I guess this show will air on Friday, so.
Yeah, I just don't understand. Like, this is weird. It's weird because I feel like we were just here talking about, oh, it's a new year, picking on people with the new year, new me thing, and here we go at the end of the year, and it's another. It's
like it just started.
New year.
And I feel like every year it gets faster and faster.
Right? I think it's the whole aging thing, though. I think that it's real weird. Like, real weird. Right?
So I feel like I'm gonna wake up and I'm gonna be 62. I don't know why I just picked that.
And still feel like, and probably still feel like you're 19, though. Like, I think the thing, when my birthday hit this year, I was like, I think the thing that's so hard is that I don't even, and I guess I'm not supposed to feel old per se, but I still feel like me, you know? Like, there are things that I don't like, obviously, or things that I don't do that I used to do. You know, I'm a lot more stable financially, thank God. So things are like, things change, but you start thinking, I don't know, you talking to somebody and you start realizing like, oh, that's what young people are doing? Like, I thought I was young. Like, I thought I was, you know. And then I blink at myself. We even start differentiating between, like, there's a difference between older millennials and younger millennials. So when you just say, like, millennials, and they'll be like, oh, you guys, all y'all know how to do is, like, you guys don't hang out with your friends. You prefer to have, like, Snapchat dates, which I didn't even know was a thing. And so I was like, wait, people do that? And they were like, yeah, y'all don't like actually going out to hang out with your friends. And I was like, wait, well, I think this is when we make a differentiation between the older millennials and the younger millennials, because I still like to kick it with my friends. Like, I still, the idea of like having a physical person there that I can talk to is still a thing for me. I'm not, you know, I can do it. We can talk on social media and we can FaceTime, but at the same time, we still got to be able to like,
actually, yeah.
Like, I need to be able to know that we friends in real life too, not just in like digital life.
Yeah, it's definitely a difference between being around somebody digitally and FaceTime and even interaction and doing interviews with people face to face.
Yeah.
And digital, and actually being in their presence. So I think people should recognize that. But once again, maybe we're just old. And like, as you said a long time ago, which is really a good thought to think through, like a long time ago, people didn't have really access to their friends like that because of distance, and they didn't have telephones, so they had to write letters. So like they would go long periods of time without talking to their friends.
Right.
So it is a kind of recent thing within the last century where you had this much access to your friends unless you stayed in close proximity to them.
Right. So it's all, you know, I mean, these are the things that we are learning in 2017, or that we did learn in 2017. So we are going to, for the last show of 2017, we're just going to just have like an open discussion, yo. Like, it's a lot that happened this year, a lot that happened personally, that we can talk about, and kind of like some things that we learned. And then also just talking about like all of the crazy crap that happened in the world, good things and bad things. I think kind of everybody's like bad thing, if you will, was the reality that the world that we knew it was changing forever.
Yeah, Twitter in chief.
Oh, Lord. But yeah, so let's just dive into like some personal things that we learned from 2017. So I can kick it off. Well, I wouldn't say like personal things, but some really good things that happened this year. One of the things that I really enjoyed about this year was my trip to Cuba, which, gosh, was almost a year ago. It seems really
That's crazy.
Yeah, but that trip was great. It was amazing. It was the first kind of big, well, it wasn't the first big, it was the first big group trip that I'd gone on out of the country, I'll say that. And I met like some new people. It was real dope. It was really good to see how differently like people live that aren't in the States. And also it was good to see how life is when you don't have your cell phone all the time. And I don't necessarily think I appreciated it as much. It didn't bother me as much as I thought it was, because I was still using my phone as like a GPS, because some kind of crazy way my phone was the only phone that could still track our location, which is still a whole other thing. But just kind of being there and us having to make plans that, hey, we're going to meet back here at a certain time. And there was no way you can just pick up the phone and call somebody or just text somebody. So it was like, y'all really had to plan to do stuff together. And it really was we all were in the same space at one point in time, and they just kind of ran into each other again. And so we met up and we had to plan and move as a group. It seemed like a headache. And while I was in it, I think I was like, oh, this would be so much easier if we just had our phone. But thinking about it in hindsight, I feel like I almost got a glimpse back into life, like before we had all this technology all the time. And I think it caused us to really rely on each other a lot more. So we had to talk about where we were going to go and what we were going to do. And, sometimes it wasn't the easiest thing, or we had to come to like group consensus. And obviously that's not always the easiest thing to do. But I think overall it was just kind of dope. Because it was different and it was almost kind of refreshing. So that was kind of like one of the things for me that was like a big highlight for this year. And it happened closer to the beginning, almost mid-year, if you will, that happened. But it was, I don't know, it was just a really, really good experience. Cuba looked great. Just seeing how much like, we were in like touristy areas, but it was just like, it just felt good to just be in a different space and just kind of like learning history. And we had like this one tour guide, or these two tour guides, but one tour guide that kind of gave us like a lot of like in-depth history, and seeing how much pride she had in her country, and like how much it was just kind of like, yo, I'm out here kind of hustling. And I feel like we kind of got hustled a couple times, but people were just out there just kind of doing their things. I think sometimes when you're not in that space of being outside of the States, like you kind of forget, we kind of think that like this is like us, we kind of do things our way, and this is just kind of like the standard. And then you go somewhere else and see other people and how they handle stuff and just how their lives are, and just kind of like, I don't know, it was really inspiring. It was like real dope.
That's cool, because I know our friend Vanna, she said Cuba was life-changing for her too.
Yeah.
So I feel like I need to go now, because I feel left out.
You should make it happen. We can go again, all of us. Let's well, I don't even know if that's a thing now, because our
yeah, I would be scared to go now, because
you scared to go anywhere, right? Like, you know what?
I'm gonna say in the continental United States. Scared to go to Hawaii right about now. He might, it's just anything that's not connected to each other,
right?
Like you'd be scared, because you just never know. I think that's dope. I think one of the things that I loved about this year is I traveled more than I ever have in a year, and it was amazing, because I always said when I was younger, man, I want a job where I could travel. And this 2017, I've traveled more than I've traveled in my life. And I know that 2018, I'll probably exceed what I traveled in the first 3 months. So
nice.
So it's just cool to like seeing things that you actually desire actualize, and just as for my company, G3, seeing growth, and the things that I'm thankful for are not necessarily the good moments, but I was thinking about this today. Like, I really appreciate, now looking back on it, the criticisms.
Yeah.
Because criticisms that challenged me, some criticisms, as I was telling Randall before we started, this criticism wasn't even in 2017. I think it was in 2016. But looking back on those criticisms throughout the years, it's like so many criticisms we receive touch on our insecurities.
Right.
And it challenges us. For me, since so many criticisms touch on my insecurities, it creates a defensiveness, but it creates a self-reflectiveness, and it causes those insecurities to become more secure in a sense. Because I think there's always going to be insecurities within us, but right. We're able to take criticisms in spaces. For me personally, I'm able to take criticisms in places that I wouldn't normally be able to take it had I not dealt with those things head on.
Right.
And so for me, I'm thankful for those, because that really helped me see, okay, am I mad because I'm insecure about this? Or I'm mad because it's a legit critique. Or I'm mad because I think it's a fake critique. And a lot of times for me, it was because it touched on insecurities that I wasn't ready to deal with, but it forced me to grow up.
Right.
It forced me to level up. So I'm thankful this year for the criticisms, for the things that kind of shook my foundation. I remember somebody telling me they didn't like that a group of people didn't like the way I did my other podcast, that's a Christian podcast, because I had too many liberal people on there, and I didn't I treated their opinions as valid. and they felt like they said that some of the more conservative people didn't want to listen. And I really took that like hurt my feelings, but it kind of made me like level up, because it's kind of like you have to take the punches. If you want to be a bridge builder, you're going to have to take punches on either side. So you got to take the punches, because that's what people are going to be critical because they don't get your vision.
Right,
so
right.
It doesn't mean you demonize them, because I still have to work with those people. It just means that I understand that they're ignorant in understanding my vision.
Right,
and
right.
What do. That doesn't mean they're bad. And so for me, it was a year where I realized that while some people gave criticisms that hurt me, they were still allies. And that's one of the lessons that I think I'll take for 2017. Like, just because you criticize me, or just because you thought one of my ideas was stupid, doesn't mean I forget that you're on my we're on the same team. We're still trying. You just don't understand how I'm playing the game.
Exactly. That's I like that. That's hot. You just don't understand how I'm playing the game. That's dope. One thing that I think for me that kind of goes into that, kind of similarly, and which was really big for me this year, is accepting conflict with people that I care about, or I was close to, or that I am close to, and having that conflict, and also having the same amount of communication with them, depth in friendship and relationship, and understanding that the two they need to really coexist. I think that sometimes for me, what I've gotten used to is that for a friend or somebody that I'm like close to, we should be on the same page. And when we're not on the same page, it's a problem that we got to tackle, and we got to get over it. And then we got to get back to agreeing with, for the most part, and being on the same page. And I think that this year's really taught me that there is a possible space in which we can disagree, we can get on each other's nerves with our like different perspectives and viewpoints, but still just make sure that we show up and still have like a good time, so we can have like a tough conversation and maybe even like an argument, and still leave from that one topic and laugh about it. Laugh about something else, and really enjoy each other's company about something else, and understand that this one thing is something that we're working through. And as we iron that out, I don't got to throw the whole person away or throw the whole friendship away. And I think that's something that for me was really pivotal, I had an argument with a friend, and I was telling another person about it, and my response to it was, don't worry about it, I'm gonna be successful. And my friend was like, what does that have to do with your argument? Like, and I was like, I'm gonna be successful without that friendship, like I'm good. And my friend was like, they didn't say that you were gonna not be successful. They didn't say that you were dumb or stupid or not even successful now. You guys had an argument about this one ideal, and that's it. Like, this person is not a horrible person. Like, what are you missing? And I realized, like, for me, it was like, dang, I have a tendency to do that. I have a tendency to get so bothered by one thing with certain people, not with everybody. And I think that's another level of like me kind of understanding, because I'm like, well, no, I'm not that type of person, because look at this person. Me and this person obviously don't agree on everything, and I'm still cool with them. But it's like me and that person don't share the same level of intimacy or depth or like history. And so my expectations for them are a bit different. But these people that I'm closer to, that I spend a lot more time with, that I talk to more, for me, it's tough. It was like, yo, we got to be on the same page. And it's like, you know what? Honestly, it's okay for us to like disagree or argue about this one topic and leave from that very same moment and laugh and have a good time, and it not be kind of a forced laugh or a forced good time. But it's like, yo, I genuinely respect you. And kind of, as you were saying, like, we still on the same team, yo. Like, we really are on the same team. We still friends. We have a lot of the same, shared goals and ideas. It's just this one thing that we disagree on, and this one thing in this moment. Maybe you need to grow. Maybe I need to grow. Maybe we both need to grow. But we can do that still together and not like kicking each other to the curb because, there's a problem. Like,
yeah, I think something else, as you were saying that, it sparked, because it made me think about like friendships and relationships that I think I grew in this year, is that I just learned that you have to, at this stage and age, you have to be intentional about who you surround yourself with.
Yeah.
And your friendships need to be a lot more intentional and a lot less accidental. So I think for me, it's like, okay, Lisa, be more intentional about your friendships, not just accidental, not just connecting with people just because they're in your proximity or they seem cool. Like, be intentional because you're in a different space. And I was just telling a friend of mine last night, I was like, I realized in a certain in different positions I occupy, and because of my job space, like, some people can't necessarily handle everything that I deal with. So it relates to the levels in which I know different leaders. So I may know somebody that people deeply admire, but I may have had a bad interaction with them. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But if I can't unload that on you and tell my frustration, because that'll crush you.
Right.
Like, so it's like, it becomes like a burden, and vice versa. Most of my friends now don't have unrealistic expectations. I tell you about encounters I have with leaders all the time,
right,
but I don't feel like it will crush you, because I just don't think you have you had an expectation of it. But some people you meet, they have like a really high expectation, so I can't vent to them. So then it becomes like our friendship can never go to any depth, because you have heroes that I may know, and I might not have the same view of them, but I can't vent to you about it.
Right.
Because I don't paint that person. You know what I'm saying? So it's just the levels in which, like, you have to develop relationships based on where you are and what you're doing. And it's now starting to click, like, okay, Lisa, like, be intentional and be strategic.
Yeah. You build that village and that circle, like, with more thought now. And it's so weird. And I think that is that too. I can definitely say that, like, a part of that, like, I even understand now, because it's less about like sometimes I feel like we think about, even when we say we don't, we're conscious of like numbers. Like, you know, you kind of get around somebody that may have like, let's say you have a birthday dinner, right? And you have like, somebody might have 50 people there. Somebody might have like 30 people there, and another person may have just like 10. Somebody might even have 5. And I think sometimes we kind of, even people that have like the larger numbers, like you're not even saying like all of these people are my friends, but you kind of just okay with being around them because it's like, oh, I know them and it's cool. And I feel like now, you know, life kind of shows you that, you know, you can be cool with those people, but all of those people may not need to be in your vicinity all the time, right? And like when it comes time for you having intimate moments where you want to talk about, you know, some things that is some plans that you have, to some next steps, or just even talking about like an experience you have or some emotions you're feeling or whatever, it's not meant for everybody to be there. Sometimes you truly need just like those key and core people, and you need to move with those people, and you can still have these other, you know, more casual friendships, relationships that, you know, are beneficial for socializing or for business or for career or whatever it is. Like you can have those, and those are like friendships, but those are things that like you kind of move in this space where you have those like core people around. You become very intentional about like that core group of people. And like if you're a friend that I'm spending personal time with, I'm spending this personal time with you for a reason. And that reason it don't have to be like I'm getting something, you know, like, oh, you're helping me plan this. It literally is just like, I like you as a person, your mindset, your ability to think through things, your ability for us to just have a conversation that's both fun and like thought provoking is helpful. And so I'm intentional about keeping people like you around more often than I am about like, oh, you know, I got like 50 friends and they all coming along to celebrate this milestone of me. Like, yeah, maybe some of them people are good for friends for one thing, but they're kind of going to give you some bad energy that's not going to, you know, produce the best of you in this moment. So don't keep them around. Like, let their mind go.
You know what else in friendships I learned, and this is just actually epiphany from last night. I was talking to one of my friends, and we were saying, we were just reflecting on different friendships we had. And they were like, for a particular friendship, they were like, well, we know all the bad. Tell me some good. And I started telling them some good. And I was like, you know what? I think that person loved me the best they could, despite what they were going through and brokenness. Yeah. And maybe that's not the love that I need or the love that I'm comfortable with, but instead of me focusing on the negative, saying, okay, they loved me the best they could with what they knew about themselves and how they knew how to give love based on how to experience love.
Right.
And I'm not going to negate their whole entire friendship or their existence in my life. I can appreciate it and just be like, you know, I appreciate the love they gave. That's probably not enough for me, just for where I am, but just being willing to say, you know what, looking back, this person loved me the best they could with what they knew about themselves. Yeah. And I think that's something that was like, oh, that's a 2017 epiphany. Like, people really love you if you're close to them, if they're going, we're all broken. We all have some kind of damage to us. So we love people based on our understanding of love at the time. Right. And what we're able to give. And so it's like, man, just understanding that and giving people that space and saying, you know what, you did. Thank you for what you did do.
Right. Right. Because, you know, it's like kind of seeing them for where they're at, and like, I'm going to pull out the good, positive things for where you're at. And, you know, I can still acknowledge that there are some things that weren't the best for me, or things that I wouldn't like or I wouldn't do, but I can still also see a positive part in you from just where you're at that moment. Yeah, I think that's dope. Yeah. So some broader things, some more like things that happen in the world. Some I don't even want to say pop culture, because there's some social things too that happen. I was like, So some of my highlights for this year. my first highlight. Well, wait, were you done with your?
Yeah, I'm
Okay,
done.
gotcha. So one of my highlights, and this probably was like super dope because I was like, I don't really know, the whole AT&T Unlimited plan, the revamped Unlimited plan. Because I had an old Unlimited plan, but with
I
that
wish I
Unlimited
would have kept
plan,
my unlimited with 18.
I was nervous about this new one. I ain't gonna lie, I was real nervous. But this new one allows me to like do some tethering. I get HBO for free. I actually decreased my bill by like $12 because I signed up with a plan with my like best friend, and so like we coming together with the new plan gave me like more features, and I still had less stuff, so that was like super dope. So that was dope. Another highlight for me this year was watching the Obama's Vacation. It was sad and depressing. This was twofold. So it was sad and depressing, right? Because it was like, yo, y'all look so happy. And like, I feel like there's a gloom and doom cloud over my head every day. Like, y'all need to come back. But it was good to kind of just see them just be normal, and see like President Obama, like, go off getting coffee somewhere, just kind of kicking it, seeing like, I think this is one photo of both of them like chilling out on the beach somewhere, and it was just like, yo, you know what, it makes me feel good because y'all definitely worked hard and represented those offices to the fullest. So I'm glad to see y'all like have that moment, which is really dope. I'm gonna make it real fast. Okay, so I got two more. So two more other highlights was SHEther. I still remember SHEther. I remember where I was when I heard SHEther. It's just dope. I was talking about SHEther before. I was excited about SHEther. I feel like SHEther opened a lot of doors to a lot of I'm gonna say open doors. I feel like SHEther pushed people to change their thoughts on hip hop and the way that they were approaching hip hop. And yeah, it was just dope. It was one of those moments that was just it was super exciting to see like everybody, it's like one of them events where people like, I remember where I was. I remember how I heard this. Oh, I remember thinking about this. And I remember going like line for line, bar for bar, and being like, dang, that was stank. Oh shoot, that was good. Godly. And it was something that I wasn't expecting, so I thought that was real dope. And then one thing that to me wasn't as good. Well, I won't go into the as to those are my things, like my highlights for the year that like just made me feel good. I'll say that for
now. So highlights for me in the world. I think. That's so tough to like narrow it down to a few. I'm going to say the Insecure series. I know it's not that big to some people, but I loved it. I think it was great TV. I like to see how characters interact. I think it gives insight to the culture and Black culture and the way we're shifting.
Black millennials.
Another highlight for me for seeing Dr. Umar Johnson being taken down.
Which is actually still happening.
Only because his pseudo scholarship just is beyond me. Some of the stuff he says just is, I don't know. I'm just like, why, guy? Why are you saying this? Why are you telling us this? So I think that if you're going to be a actual scholar, I think you need to actually research. And some of his stuff I'm not saying all his stuff is bad. He does have some good points, but a lot of stuff he says is damaging because it's just not accurate.
Extremely damaging. And not just on the religious front. I'm sorry. Just because I'm going to say this. I don't know, not to take away from you, but I was having a conversation with somebody and they were saying like, well, I feel like people that are Christians are just upset with him because of his religious beliefs and they don't believe in everything else. And I'm like, it's not even just his religious beliefs. Like, I don't think that a lot of the issues that people have or even should have with him is from the standpoint of like just what he believes in, like his faith is or what his religious beliefs are. Like, I think that's a thing to criticize in itself. But even just some of the like social things, the psychological things that he talk about, like it's just accurate. And it's inaccurate. Like it's not accurate at all. And so like but he's stating these things as if it's fact, and you have a lot of people that hear him because you agree with him with one point. It's like everything he say is good, and it's like, nah, bro, like it's a lot of this that's BS, like for real, and you got to know that it's BS. I'm sorry for taking you a moment. Go ahead.
No, you're right, and I think one of the things and misconceptions that people don't know about academia and PhDs and doctoral degrees, just because you have a doctoral degree in psychology doesn't mean you're expert on any other thing. Like, that's a very specific field. People get doctoral degrees in very specific fields. They can have a PhD behind their name and suck at every other field they're talking about. But I think people get intimidated by a PhD in an area and figure that they're the smartest person in the room and they need to listen to them. In reality, you probably shouldn't listen to them about certain things because they're not an expert in those.
Yeah, it's having your own thoughts and brains. Like it's still relevant today, being able to think for yourself. I think for me, that's why God gave us our own brains and ability to think, because it's like so important that we do it for ourselves. Just my thoughts and what I've been thinking, though. That's all.
No, T-Roy from 92.6 to 93.3 the beat, James. I think another thing that I was excited about this year was the unity I see amongst African Americans as far as the resistance of Donald Trump. It's like we had Donald Trump and people didn't know what to do with it, but I see Black people rallying. We could see in the elections Black people, the Keisha Bottoms in Atlanta. We see the mayor in Birmingham, Alabama. I think it's African-American young gentleman. So it's like people are rising up. And so I think that's important to see, like, okay, we have Donald Trump, but it's like, we're not going to go quietly. Like we're right. Getting behind and we're rallying and realizing the importance that we need to be active and engaged in our communities. And I've been seeing a resurgence of people being active, even in the NAACP meetings that I attend in Jacksonville, seeing more younger people each week because people want to do something. And it's like being awakened out of complacence and saying, okay, what can I do? And so I'm seeing that in some cases. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think just seeing like this Black love and like Black success and Black excellence, and that be put in the forefront. And I'll say people of color, but I'm Black, so, people of color in general, but I'm Black. So of course, we're Black. So of course we love seeing Black people do it too. But I think seeing that, and at the beginning of the year, yeah, I feel like we all were just kind of like, I don't know what's going on, yo. Like, I feel like there was so much like, I'm not sure how to deal with this. I'm not sure how to handle, anything that's going on. Like, I don't know what's happening. Like, this seems like just hella dark, and we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know how we're going to take care of each other. And I don't think that we're 100% out of that space, because we still feel like we see things that's happening, like with net neutrality, which is on my list of things that I wasn't so happy about. And just kind of seeing how, this new tax bill and seeing how things kind of shift, and like, it feels like to me, we're being prepared for something else that's coming that's not as good, but seeing like this outpour of love amongst each other, and seeing like, all of these people just win, all these Black people win in so many areas, and just seeing us love on each other and support each other, and us call out people that are trying to like tear us down, and people that are trying to blame Black people, which if we go back to Dr. Umar, like seeing people that want to point at black people and blame black people for everything, as if it's impossible for us to do multiple things. It's impossible for somebody to say that I have investments, I have an education, I have my own business, and I also want to buy Jordans. Like, if that is your thing, it is possible for us to do all of these things. And no, you know, yes, there are people that probably should be doing other things and doing different things, but stop looking at people that are being victimized, that are being ostracized and oppressed and depressed and repressed and all of this stuff, and looking at them and saying, you're the problem, it's your fault, you, instead of saying like, yo, here is what you are also doing. You guys are amazing. You guys just saved an election. You guys just swung this. You changed so many people's lives. You guys are continuously making something where there is nothing, and where people are making nothing, and you turn it into something, and not only something that just you like, but something that the entire country and the entire world like. So like, I think that is, I agree that is powerful, and I love it. You know, Black excellence is everything. I love it.
So some of the things we didn't like in 2017, Jeff Sessions and the cruelty and the rolling back of Obama's harsher, not harsher, but less of the mandatory minimums.
Oh yeah,
enforcement of so Jeff Sessions said we need to give even non-violent crimes that have to do with drugs the max, and we know that affects our communities disproportionately, and that just is a key word for people with weed are going to prison for long periods of time. Meanwhile, people in some states are selling them. And in Colorado, I believe they were telling me that actually more black people have been prosecuted while it's legal because they've been selling it without a license.
Wow.
And licenses are so expensive to get that, black people can't afford it. So it really is like a white man sport in a sense, because they have license. So you could still be put in prison if you're selling it illegally. And so, yeah. So they get to sell it legally and still incarcerate
incarcerate people. So you basically just created a barrier to entry that it's only likely that a certain type of people in a certain tax bracket can break that barrier, and everybody else that's doing it, you still get punished because you couldn't break this barrier. Yeah.
Because it's regulated. I don't know did you ever see the documentary on Netflix about the white couple that sold weed in Colorado?
No.
But like the amount of license they had to get and the amount of work they had to put in, like you would have to have some money to even start selling it legally. So it's sickening that they're making money off of it in one space and then prosecuting people to the fullest extent in another space. And really the difference is the skin color. It's absolutely disgusting. So that's one of the things I did not like that comes from this administration, and things that they're doing. Oh, you know what? Going back to the highlights, Omarosa no longer being in the White House.
that whole
Bye, Felicia.
Yeah, bye, Felicia.
I know we already talked about it, but we were talking about the White House that came to my head. I didn't want to. We could go back to things we didn't dislike, but
that was definitely that was a highlight. It was
Sarah Huckabee Sanders lying every day to us. When I tell you, I watch these daily press briefings and me so upset every day because the way she lies with such a confidence. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I used to always say, I used to be like, I feel bad for these people because it's like, it's your job, so like you have to lie. Like you obviously can't get up there and be like, oh yeah, that was some BS. I know it was some BS. So you got to kind of come up with something. And I think, in the past few days, the past few weeks, I've just kind of started thinking about it because people be like, I don't feel bad they signed up for it. And I was like, you know what? You're right. Like, it's one thing to hear it, but now I'm like, I really do. Yeah, I don't feel bad for you no more because you really could say no, and you don't have to be in the same way for Omarosa. Like, you ain't have to be this person. You really didn't have to be this person. You signed up for this, so I don't got no sympathy for you, yo. Like,
yeah,
whatever little sympathy I had is out the door.
Another thing I didn't like, I feel like all of it has to center around this administration. Paris Denard.
I don't think I ever liked him, so I don't really have.
I didn't have really a strong opinion about him because I didn't really pay that much attention to him and he's always on CNN. And I feel like I watch probably way too much of CNN. But he's always on there, and just the levels in which I remember following him before the election. And he kind of used to shade Donald Trump all the time before he came the candidate for the GOP. When they were doing the primaries, he was shading him all the time and talking about how inadequate he was. And I really wish somebody would go back and just every time he talks, pull up those tweets if he hasn't deleted them. It's just like, bruh.
Yeah.
You don't even believe this.
So I never cared for him I found out who he was from his News One Now days. He was a regular on News One Now, and every time somebody brought him with a factual point, like actual hardcore facts, he would never really address it. And I say this all the time. I think that we all can believe what we want to believe. He used to always kind of talk about, the fact that he is black and he's a Republican or a conservative, and how, people just want to disagree with him or call him out for that. And it's like, bruh, that's very lazy. That's extremely lazy. Like, yes, a person is capable for a person to look at you and be like, you a who and do what for why? Like, yes, people can do that, but they can also have a intelligent conversation with you and at the same time say, you're not addressing facts. You're not addressing the issues. You keep every chance you get to talk about and address something, you deflect to talking about, well, President Obama did this and President Obama did, and it's like, yo, like, come on, let's have the discussion. Like, if you feel that way and you believe that way and you take this conservative viewpoint, like, talk about it. Explain why. Like, and when somebody comes up with a valid argument that makes it seem like you're stupid for supporting even Donald Trump, like today, like, tell us why in this moment you still say, hey, I don't think that's as big of a deal, but this other thing to me is really important, or I can see how there's, that would bring you some discomfort, but here's some other things. But it's just like, I just don't like people that are doing stuff just to be talking heads, just to kind of like have an opinion, to have a platform to say something. Like, it's great, it's cool, like, kudos for what you have in that platform, but let's also bring some like actual intellectual substance to it, and let's start talking about addressing things and trying to prove your point of why you stand on this side. Whenever, don't just like overlook it. And I feel like he's always done this from like News One nowadays. I remember when I first started seeing him on News One Now, people used to like roast his behind, and he just refused to really address anything with like true logic. It was just, because I was telling somebody yesterday, I don't even mind you being affiliated with either party. Like, I mean, either party you choose is going to have flaws. You know what I'm saying? Right,
there's no perfect party, but at least be able to, if you feel like you have a moral high ground, be able to, if you want to have a moral high ground, be able to critique this, whatever your party is, on things that are wrong, and
be fair.
Yeah, and be fair and say, you know what, this is the party I chose, but we have this, and this wrong with them. I'm trying to aid in fixing these problems, and I'm trying to be, affect change in that space.
Yeah,
that's fine. I think people respect that.
Yeah, or even if you don't believe that a particular issue is a problem, like, that's fine too. It's it's okay. You can be like, yeah, I never thought about that. I don't think about that. That doesn't affect me that way. But understanding you, understanding your background, understanding your story, like I see how that can be a problem. One of the things that I say is like, I realize in having a conversation with a coworker, and I think I've mentioned like these conversations I've had with her before, but I was like, hey, as a white woman, you're never going to understand what it is to be a black person in America. You're just not going to get it. So I can't be mad at you for not understanding or not thinking about how this legislation or this party's history or the party actions today on a social front affects and excludes black people. I can never expect you to do that just off the cuff naturally. But my problem comes in when I come as a credible person, as a black person. There's a black person that comes from a certain level of a certain like economic background and that has like experienced life in so many different ways than you have. And I bring my full self, my full experience, and I'm explaining to you why something edges me out and why something makes me uncomfortable, and you try to tell me that like I shouldn't think about that or I should just get over it, like then that's when we have a problem. You know what I'm saying? Like that's when it really is a problem. And you're telling me how, oh well, yeah, I just would have assumed that you were conservative because you know you speak this way and you know you live here and you hang, and it's like, wait, what does that have to do with anything? Like I'm telling you what the problem is. I'm telling you as a person that respects you, as a person that has more, you know, a quote unquote better position in this organization than you do. I'm trying to tell you like why, even in spite of the tax bracket that we're in and all this other crap, like why there's still problems. And you're telling me like, oh, you should just not care about that. Like that's when a problem comes. And so it's like, in that sense with your homeboy, it's like, bruh, like, you know, I'm not going to ask you to get it. Now, there's a long laundry list of stuff that I feel like you should get. Now, I don't. But if you don't get it, that's cool. I'm not going to be mad at you for not immediately getting it. But don't try to like silence somebody that's trying to explain something to you and tell them that like, oh, well, you know, it's not that big of a deal. You should just let that go. Don't be so sensitive. And it's like, wait, hold on. It's not about being sensitive. It's about me having the same opportunity to express myself that you do. And if you are somebody that you're telling me that your party is the best thing for black people, then we should be able to have a conversation about like, for real, why. And I can accept criticisms within the party that I vote for or that I support. I can, like, that's fine. You're right. Everything ain't no crystal stair. Like it's a bunch of jacked up stuff that has happened and that still does happen. So let's talk about those things. And I can say, yeah, I understand that, but here's why I'm moving this way on this issue for this reason because of this. You should be able to do the same.
Yeah. And
go for it.
That's how you maintain your moral high ground.
Yeah, that's it. It's real simple, right? Like it's real simple. Like it don't take a lot.
If you don't, nobody will believe you on anything else.
Yeah, it's just a bunch of bull. Two of the things that really kind of were sour to me, like two of the biggest things. One I've talked about before, so I won't go in depth. The ending of News One Now. That was really like the one thing about 2017 that I could have done without. I know that, you know, there's talk about News One Now coming back in the podcast format and possibly, you know, being like on a radio format and all this other stuff, which is great. But the show, the television show, being in that space, occupying the space that it did, Roland Martin doing the things that, you know, that he did with the show, giving people the opportunities that he gave them, just kind of overall, like the show overall, I think was great. And I'm going to definitely miss in 2018. So I didn't really care for that. And another thing that's not really being talked about, but that kind of, I don't know, this is really, it's a little touchy in general, but really bothers me. So the Me Too campaign, hashtag Me Too, was a big thing, or is a big thing because it's still going on. So it is a big thing and it's a huge movement. But one of the things that really bothers me is Terry Crews, you know, I don't feel, and I heard that he's apparently not getting a lot of like love being shown to him. But I guess the thing that bothers me is that in him, you know, making his statement and coming forth, and I feel like kind of the public just had like this huge outcry of support of other people that have done, and other women that women that have said things, and like people have kind of like rallied around them. But I kind of feel like Terry Crews really wasn't a thing. Like nobody really talked about it. It wasn't something that even honestly the Time magazine covered. Like I would have loved to see him included in that, because it's like, yo, you're coming from another perspective that we need to think about. You are somebody that was sexually assaulted, and it happened in front of your wife, yo, and it also happened from another man. So that's a whole other thing that we kind of got to tap into to talk about. And I just don't feel like people really gave that a lot of attention. And so that, to me, that's a problem, because it starts to say, I mean, Gabrielle Union said it as well. Like, wow, I think it's very important for us to, you know, empathize and sympathize with anybody that have been in those spaces, and us to really talk about those things, and to, you know, to shed light on a lot of these stories. It's very interesting that it starts to look one way. It starts to seem like it's a very white movement, and it seems like we're only really given a lot of consideration and context and airtime to certain people that have that experience, when there's so many other people that have also had similar experiences. There's a lot of women of color, there's a lot of black women, you know, there's a lot of men and black men that have had those experiences. So if you have somebody that steps up and says something, it's like, well, let's also make sure that we're being inclusive in our concern during this movement. So that to me is like, yeah,
because the Time magazine cover didn't even put Tarana Burke on the cover, and she started Me Too like a decade ago. So
right, right, absolutely. So I think in any time a movement like that's so powerful, that means so much, I think it really is like this is an opportunity for us to really show everybody, and to try to like make sure everybody's represented, to make sure that we're talking about. So if we're talking about just hashtag Me Too, like that's cool, but let's make sure that hashtag Me Too is inclusive of people that are Me Too, and people that look differently. And I know that, you know, there's a lot of people who are like, oh, well, it's not all about race and everything's not about race. But it's like, no, like in this space, in this country, like race was created for a reason. It was very intentional. So we have to be intentional about making sure that everything is represented, because what we do know is that when we don't represent people, we all can kind of believe or just assume that it's not a thing for them. I'll never forget growing up and believing that black kids didn't get kidnapped. Like, I just did not believe that. I was like, maybe like 17. I was like, yo, black kids just don't get kidnapped, because no, we don't. And then realizing that, like, no, it's not that our kids don't get kidnapped. It's just that they're never like publicized. And then that became like, wait, whoa, like, you know, how easy it is to know I'm a black person, right? I know that my mama always told me I got to stay by her and don't talk to strangers and watch where I go. But just because I never saw that on the news, I just thought we just didn't get kidnapped. I thought people weren't interested in kidnapping our babies, but it's like, no, that's not it. People do. It happens to us too. Nobody just says anything. And I'm sure there's things like that we all know and experience. It's like, this is why we got to be intentional about like making sure that we cover and give people coverage and considerations and things like this. So that's one of the things. Another thing, and 2018 was like, I could have did without that. 2017, I could have did without that.
Definitely. Well, we're almost at an hour.
Crazy, right? 2017 was. And I feel like we can go on, because it was so much that happened this year. Like, it flew by fast, but when you start thinking about it, it's like, dang, a lot of stuff happened. Like,
a lot of changes in the world, a lot of changes in us personally. So it's just like, wow. So let us know what y'all I'm about to say 2016. That's how crazy this year flew by. Tell us about y'all 2017. Hashtag ChatBC on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, What did you learn? How did you grow? What world events were surprising to you that made you excited? Which ones made you angry? Hit us up, #ChatBC on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We'd love to interact with you. And Randall, you're going to leave us with a good vibe?
The last good vibe for 2017 is today, or January 1st, 2018, is the first blank page of a 365-page book. Write a good one.
Yes.
Yes. I think it's really dope because it makes you think about the year in a different way. And you're writing a book. This is a new book that you're going to be writing. It has 365 pages in it. Like, how are you going to write it? And that means being intentional about what you're going to do for your year. That means taking the rest of this week and setting some goals, writing down those goals, figuring out a way to hold yourself accountable for it, and make sure that every day you're writing that book so it looks a certain way. So I love this quote. I think it's dope. I'm not exactly sure who it's by, but I think it's a really dope quote. And I think it's something that's going to be a great way to kind of view your year so you can plan for it and you can execute it and make sure it happens. So make sure that you guys do that. As always, guys, we thank you guys so much for listening to Brunch Culture. We thank you guys for rocking with it. We have some great new ideas for 2018, some things that we're going to be doing differently, some things that we're going to go back to doing, and just kind of just really expanding our reach and making sure that Brunch Culture is here to stay. We love you guys so much. We thank you guys so much for the feedback. Thank you guys for interacting with us on social media. I think you guys know where to find us, but we're on Instagram at brunch_culture and Twitter at brunch culture. Make sure you guys check out our website at www.brunchculturebc.com. And 2018 will be an incredible year. We know it. And I'm not one of those people that says that and that's going to be like, oh, at the end of 2018, it was horrible. Like, every year is going to be filled with ups and its downs. I feel like your perspective and the way that you view it, Lisa and I talk about this all the time, but the way that we kind of view our year and the way that we are intentional about making certain changes and doing certain things, I think that's what makes for a really good year. And if the year turns out to be rocky and hard, you still have some positive things that were good. And so that's what we tried to talk about here. We had some great things that happened this year, both personally and in like the grand scheme of life. And there was some not so good things that, we can kind of deal without. But overall, it was a year of learning, which every year should be. So make sure you guys are looking forward to that. We will see you guys in 2018. Remember, here at Brunch Culture, everything is up for discussion.